what I think is the most relevant skill, which is the skill to make a valuable judgment. So the skill or the competence is not anymore to acquire the legal knowledge, but to make a valuable judgment with this knowledge.
Dr. Soledad Atienza Becerril, Dean of IE Law School in Madrid and co-president of the Law School's Global League. She has a background in private practice at Pérez Llorca, and she has become one of Europe's most visible voices on how legal education must change under pressure from globalization, digitalization, and AI.
So we need to train students with a mindset and the skills and the competencies that will allow them to solve problems and answer the complex questions and also ask the complex questions in 5, 10, or 15 years' time. There are different perspectives when we talk about AI and the law. One of them, for example, is offering students access to a tool.
A legal AI tool.
A legal AI tool. I think it's the students and it's the market that is pushing law schools for the transformation. And it is the responsibility of law schools to guide and to lead this transformation. So the question is not should we allow students to use AI or not, but how do we teach students while using AI to think critically, independently, and to make valuable judgment. And at the same time, teach them more sophisticated and more complex skills and competencies.
How did you change your assessments then as a university, as a school?
This is a very interesting work that we are doing right now as we speak. And in our case, we are...
This episode is powered by Zeno. Zeno's AI navigates law like a human legal professional, grounded in authoritative sources, backed by traceable citations. Visit zeno.law and make deep thinking your competitive edge.
Soledad, welcome. It's an honor to have you in the show.
It's a pleasure to be here, Hide. Very nice to meet you and to participate in this podcast.
So we will talk mainly about legal education today and, of course, the role of AI and how AI is going to change legal education. But I want to start with lawyers as architects of society. Because if we look at law, and I studied law myself in the Netherlands, it's a very national education. Of course, you have some international courses, but after your study, you're working within national law and not most of the time international law. And if you look at that architects of society, what can we learn from making the law study more international instead of more national?
So there are two issues here, I believe. One of them is I truly very much agree that lawyers are the architects of society and they have a responsibility in society. This takes me to think that law schools and legal academics also have a responsibility in society because we are training and we are educating different legal professionals who have the responsibility of being the architects of society. I think there is the other issue is what I believe is a tension that we see in the legal market and in the practice of law between a national approach and a more global approach. The global approach comes from a global society, from a world where people move, study in one place, work in another place, start working in one country and then move to another country, where families are international, where companies are multinationals, where transactions are international, and conflicts are international. But the tension comes when we understand that it's not only that legislation or jurisprudence is national, but it is the regulation of the access to the profession that is very national. So in order to become a lawyer in Spain or in the US or in the UK, you need to study specific content at specific local institutions, take a bar exam, maybe do an internship, do a master's.
Which makes it very hard to move as a lawyer to another jurisdiction.
Exactly. And this is where I see the tension. I see that training is usually, and I say usually because I see a window, I see a trend for some law schools and some universities that are doing a more international and are offering an international legal education. But it's usually very local oriented. But the reason is because the access to the profession is highly regulated and it is national. But the truth is that most of the lawyers who practice in private law or public law, if they work for public institutions or for global firms or for small firms, and those who do corporate law, but also those who do family law, the transactions and the conflicts they have to deal with usually have some kind of international content. It is not possible to practice the law and to do it only and fully on a national basis, because that is not how society works anymore. So what I see here is a challenge, but I think it's also a responsibility for law schools to find a way to provide a somewhat global legal education to their graduates. And there are different levels of this, and there are many different ways in which a law school can do this. Of course, we have the most basic exchange programs, but this is already a step. You go abroad, you learn about the legislation of another jurisdiction. You start making a network of lawyers in another country. There is also what I think is a step forward, which is to teach global content in a program. And this can be comparative law, this can be European Union law, this can be international law, transnational law. There are different ways of teaching a program in law that will enable you to pass a bar exam, to be able to practice in one jurisdiction, but at the same time to include international content in the program.
Yeah, and if we go back in history and we look at the first real serious law education, it was in Bologna. It was very, very international. It was not supranational. It was very international.
Exactly, and I think this is a fantastic example that we should keep in mind. And for me personally, this is a big inspiration. And what I think is, if in the Middle Ages people took the effort and took the risk of traveling to Italy to study law, and this is hundreds and thousands of students who went to Italy to study law in Latin, which was a language that was not used in everyday life, to study jus commune, which was not a legislation that was implemented at the time anywhere. And why did they do this? They did this because of the relevance, because of the prestige of the principles and the values they were acquiring.
And the systems.
But this was in the Middle Ages. What happened after that? The jus commune, the way of teaching in Bologna, had a huge influence in other universities, in Italy, in France, in Spain, many places in Europe. But after that, most universities started teaching rather a more national and local law. And this is what some of the authors, some of the historians called that legal studies went from a very cosmopolitan example, as the jus commune in the Middle Age, to a more provincial way of teaching, which is now we only teach our local system. So this makes me constantly think, can we not go back to something like this, no?
Can we teach the principles and the systems more? That's a bit what I hear in your answer.
Exactly.
And I have the feeling, and we will touch on AI in a second, but I also have the feeling that when AI, and we are now at the start point of the AI, times for law, that principles and systems will become more and more important. And like knowing exactly how your national law works becomes less important.
Precisely. And the proof is that there is already a number of law schools, for example, in Europe, that already teach programs in what is called global law. There's a program in University of Edinburgh, Bocconi, Tilburg, Amsterdam, IE, my own university. We all have programs in global law.
What do you teach in global law?
We teach, as you were mentioning, we teach common principles and foundations of law. In our program, in particular, we teach comparative law. We try to make students understand what the similarities and the differences between different legal systems are, and in particular between common law and civil law systems. This provides what we think is what we call a global legal mindset. We're not teaching an addition of legal systems one on top of another, but we are trying to teach the principles of a legal system. And because as we mentioned before, because the access to the legal profession, to any legal profession, is so regulated, graduates will eventually need to take a master's and then an internship and then a local bar exam, and they will eventually learn about one specific legal system, but they will have a broader mindset, not one focused on one local and national legal system, but a wider one.
If you understand those principles as a student, it also becomes more easier, especially in the era of AI, to maybe work in another country at a certain point.
Exactly. And AI changes everything in legal practice and in legal education. And the context where we need to teach and students need to learn and they will need to practice the law is one where the legal knowledge itself is very, very accessible. So we need to make sure that we teach that students make the effort to acquire critical thinking and what I think is the most relevant skill, which is the skill to make a valuable judgment. So the skill or the competence is not anymore to acquire the legal knowledge, but to make a valuable judgment with this knowledge. But if you are able to acquire critical thinking skills or valuable judgment skills, this could be applied for different jurisdictions, for different local regulations.
Yeah, it's easy to apply this at the knowledge, at the law knowledge at a certain country. I had an interview with Richard Susskind, and he was also talking about how lawyers, how their role is changing, and how their role as architects of society is going to change. And he told me that he thinks that, especially for normal citizens, a lot of legal content, a lot of legal knowledge, they're not going to get it from lawyers anymore in the future, but they're going to get it from tools, they're going to get it from systems. It's going to be very easy for them to acquire that knowledge that they need to dispute, for example, a resolution that they have. And that also means that the role of the lawyer is going to change, where now the lawyer is giving the information, is giving the content. They will maybe need to check the content or need other skills to help those people apply the content. And that also changes the role of future lawyers.
Yeah, fully agree with Richard Susskind in everything he says. I think we are living in a very interesting and very relevant time for legal services and legal education. And I think the way legal services are provided is changing, and for this reason, legal education should be changing also. I don't think the demand for legal services is shrinking. I think the demand for legal services is growing for various reasons. We are regulating more and faster everywhere around the world, and as we said before, the access to the legal profession and the regulation is always national. So we don't have a supranational a regulatory body. And the pace at which we are approving and we're passing regulation everywhere around the world is faster and faster. There are new situations and new contexts to regulate because we live in an AI society now. So this needs to be regulated.
So we have more laws.
Exactly. And not only more laws, but more law as a whole, because we have more conflicts than ever, more arbitration cases, more cases that are being litigated around the world in national or supranational institutions, more transactions than ever. So this means there is a higher need of legal services provision now. There is also a situation of uncertainty and change that I think calls for security, for transparency, and this is what legal professionals, not only lawyers but also judges and notary publics and other legal professionals do. So there is a higher need of legal professionals.
So you're not afraid that lawyers will lose their job?
Absolutely not. I think this is a very exciting time for lawyers. The question is, who will provide these legal services? Is this going to be the global law firms? Is this going to be the national law firms? Is this going to be lawyers who use AI agents? Is this going to be in-house legal departments? So that is the question, I think, right now. Who is going to provide a growing demand of legal services to companies, to institutions, to multinationals? And that's why I think that legal academics and law schools have a big responsibility and a big opportunity right now. But we academic institutions need to embrace this time of change and transformation, and make sure that we not only prepare our students for a professional career, but that we prepare our students to make the right questions, to make the difficult questions, to ask themselves, for example, how does AI impact in human rights? How does AI impact in constitutional law? It's not only about regulating AI, which is part of what they will have to do, but how does AI change the rules of society, the rules of my community, and what can I do also from an ethical point of view to make sure that, yes, we use AI for a bigger efficiency, but at the same time that we respect the rule of law.
A lot of questions. Do you ask those questions to your students?
We not only ask those questions to our students, but we insist that they themselves ask these questions to them as time goes by, as semesters evolve and years go by, that they should be thinking about a bigger project, a bigger influence, a bigger impact, because this is what the legal profession is about, right? We started with these architects of society that lawyers are.
Yeah, and those architects are changing because of AI. So AI needs to be a lens for your whole curriculum, and not only one course. We're gonna implement one course on AI in our university, and then we're done.
No, well, that's a start. No,
that's a start. That's the first step.
The first step is to offer courses on AI. Another step is to make sure that everything that you teach includes a perspective from AI. Which doesn't mean you need to remake all of your content, but you need to ask yourself as a professor, as a faculty member, does a society that takes AI seriously and where AI is implemented in different perspectives, does this change what I am teaching? So, for example, how does AI change labor law? Is there anything I need to include in my syllabus? Do I need to change the readings, or do I need to change the cases I use? And of course, there are I'm talking about the legal discipline here, but there are courses that are obviously transform the intellectual property. There are other courses where we need to look deeper, like human rights or constitutional law. How does AI or technology influence here? And I think this is a very serious exercise that we are doing at my school and at some other universities also. And there is a third level above that, which is to train students who will be able to solve future problems in a society that is going through changes and that we know will keep changing and transforming very fast. So we need to train students with a mindset and the skills and the competencies that will allow them to solve problems and answer the complex questions and also ask the complex questions in 5, 10, or 15 years' time. No?
I have the feeling that asking questions is going to be a superpower in the era of AI. And that if we look at old curriculums of law schools, we don't teach them to ask a lot of questions. When did you start to change your curriculum because of AI technology? When was the starting point of this?
I think we moved from a national or local focused curriculum to a global focused curriculum, and immediately to an AI or technology focused curriculum.
So when was this?
That has been the evolution. I think before AI, a few years before AI, we started introducing a perspective or lenses of technology.
How's it possible that you already had that insight? Because a lot of law schools, they are now maybe starting to see, we need to change something, and you already, before ChatGPT were launched a few years before.
Because we try to be very close to the legal market, to those who recruit our students, to those who legislate, to those who solve conflicts, and we were seeing that they were concerned, and they were also taking the opportunity and benefiting from technology. This was more technology that was applied to legal services. So that's when we started working around this issue that has now moved to AI and the law. But as I said, there are different perspectives when we talk about AI and the law. One of them, for example, is offering students access to a tool,
a legal AI tool.
A legal AI tool.
You give them access as students to practice.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And I don't think the question is, should we let students use AI or not? Students will use it because this is what they use for their everyday life. So why are they not going to use it for their studies? Every legal professional that has access to it uses it. So how are we going to train students to access the legal market and forbid them of using the top legal AI tools? So we have provided free access to all of our faculty and all of our students to an AI tool. But it is our responsibility to guide them in the use of this tool. When, how, and why? Those are the questions that we are trying to work with our students around. Why should you use it now? Why should you not use it now? Because we're not giving this to the students, helping them to look for a shortcut, for an answer.
Yeah.
That's not our aim. Our aim is to prepare them for the real legal market that they're going to find once they graduate in a few years. And also, we want to prepare them to be upfront, to advance, to know in advance what are the conflicts and the transactions and the issues going to be. But for this, they need to use the tools that not only their colleagues and their law firms will use, but also that the clients will use. Because if your client is using this tool, how can you not have been trained to use it? No?
Yeah, it's already happening that a lot of clients, they use an AI tool and then send over a pile of documents and say, hey, I already did 50% of the work. And then as a lawyer, you need to check it and you need to know how it works. What is the response from students by using this tool?
I have to say that students are very they are very fast in learning how to use it. They are very fast in understanding the benefits of it. They are the ones who push for the transformation, right? I think it's the students and it's the market that is pushing law schools for the transformation. And it is the responsibility of law schools to guide and to lead this transformation. So they want to use it, yes, but we should be the ones deciding how and when.
But it's interesting what you say. The students are pushing.
Yes.
And I will not mention names, but there are some universities in the Netherlands where it's totally the other way around. So students, they push, and university, the only thing they do, they push back.
I don't think in this context, in this situation, you can forbid students from using a tool that every legal, not only legal institutions, but every professional service firms uses. Because you need to teach something that is more advanced than that. You need to teach something that is more advanced than legal content. You need to teach what we call this global legal mindset. You need to teach behind and beyond your own legal system. You need to teach beyond law. You need to teach other disciplines. You need to teach students philosophy, economics, political sciences, and you need to teach students other skills and competencies that are not only legal knowledge. You need to teach them human skills. But all of this, if the AI can help you teach content to the students, then you can teach the more advanced and the more sophisticated competencies and skills. So my recommendation is to embrace AI as a university, as a law school, allow students to test it, allow students to work with it, guide them, and show them what the correct and the ethical use of AI for legal services is, and how AI can make legal services more efficient, how AI can help give a better service to clients, how AI can make justice more accessible and fastest for all, and at the same time teach them more sophisticated and more complex skills and competencies.
How did you change your assessments then, as a university, as a school?
Yes, this is a very interesting work that we are doing right now as we speak. And in our case, we're trying different things. Sometimes we are going back to old style, and I'm thinking, about what we're talking about before, about the jus commune and how it was taught in the Middle Ages. We are now back at writing exams with a pen and a piece of paper, which looks more like Middle Age than what we have been doing over the past 20, 30 years. We are also going back to oral exams, which is also we had not been doing for a while, and I think this is interesting because it puts us in a situation of a mindset that we need to rethink how we assess students. We cannot keep doing what we were doing. We really need to think of different ways. And I think what makes a very valuable assessment method for a university is one that includes different systems. Some of the assessment will be class participation, some of the assessment will be oral exams, some of the assessment will be written exams, and I think this is what this is, of course, more challenging for the student because it requires to make an effort and to improve every single way of assessment. No, but this is more comprehensive and I think more valuable.
But you're going back to written assessments?
Yes, we are.
Are you asking them questions about the content then, or is it more questions about the systems and principle?
We try to focus on our questions are more around being able to solve a problem. This is a case. What is your opinion? How would you solve this? And sometimes, for example, what we are doing is we are telling the student, this is the case, this is the situation, this is the response AI gave me. Can you do a critical assessment on what AI, on the response that AI has given me?
Are they allowed to use the legal AI tool during their assessment?
They will be able to. They will be able to, yes.
So they are doing a written exam, and then they have their laptop next to them to cross-check with the legal AI to see, hey, okay, how can I know that the answer is correct?
So what we are trying, the exercise we're trying to do is to ask them, in the first place, to ask them to solve cases that are highly sophisticated, that have different angles, that have a comparative law angle, that maybe have an economic angle in addition to a legal one. And instead of asking them to solve it, asking them to use the AI tool to solve it. So they are at the same time they are also exercising their skills to do the right prompting, to ask the right question, and then to criticize the response that they got from AI. So I think this because we allow them to use the AI tool, we also ask them for a deeper and a more sophisticated answer. Or when we are in class, the debates in class can be around the response that AI gave. So this is the response we got from AI. Now, and that's where I think the leadership and the guidance from the faculty comes in, because the faculty can say, this is the problem that we have, or this is the case. You can use AI to find the solution. Once you have seen the solution, now don't use AI and let's talk about this. What do you think about this? And if you were defending the other party, what would you say? And if you were the judge, what would you say? And if this was taking place under a different legislation, what would you say? And that's where the critical thinking and the valuable judgment start to build.
So this podcast is sponsored by a legal AI tool called Zeno. And they are an AI platform for legal professionals with direct integration of current legislation and case law. And as part of the collaboration, they can always ask a question to my guests. And the question they have for you, I think, is perfectly suited for the topic we just talked about. What should law school teach students so they can use legal AI tools responsibly without losing the ability to reason independently?
That is the question that every law school should be asking themselves. So the question is not, should we allow students to use AI or not? But how do we teach students, while using AI, to think critically, independently, and to make valuable judgment? That is the question that we need to respond through our content, through our teaching methodology, and through the research that we are doing.
That question should be everywhere.
We are recently undertaking a research project. We have not finalized it yet, but we are trying to evaluate a group of students where some of them have used AI and some of them have not, in order to solve cases, and how their mindset has evolved and how their critical thinking has evolved over the response to those cases. So,
what are the first results?
We don't have the results yet, but I hope I will be able to share them with you, Hide, in a few months. And this is we are extremely excited about this the results. The way we have done this is we have asked students to solve a case, and a first case and a second case. For the first case, one group could use AI and the other one could not. Now, in order to solve the second case, what you have learned from the first part is extremely useful. In the second part, nobody uses AI. So how do the students who do use AI tools for the first part respond to the second part? Does this give them do they get any feedback from, have they learned anything from using AI or not?
I see the excitement in your face talking about this experiment.
Yes. I am very much looking forward to the results.
You just mentioned we need to teach students also economics. We need to teach them philosophy. We need to teach them business. Do you have the feeling that students, or maybe even lawyers in the era of AI, are going to be more generalists than specialists?
I think that education, particularly at an undergraduate level, should be multidisciplinary and broader rather than more focused on only one discipline. I think this is a very early stage of education and training, and I think multidisciplinary programs make students more aware of different disciplines, different situations, different contexts. And there is a huge variety of multidisciplinary programs around the world. Some of them are dual programs, some of them are joint programs, but also there are programs in one discipline where students can take elective courses, seminars, or classes in other areas, in other disciplines, and this is something I absolutely recommend to any law student. I think on a second phase, on a more advanced graduate studies or master's studies, particularly if this is executive education that is very much focused on the career. This is when a more specialized education or training comes in. But I am a believer of a more wider, broader, and multidisciplinary way of teaching and learning at the earlier stage of undergraduate programs.
And if I look at the teaching and also the future of legal students, I have the feeling that a few things are going to be more and more important. You already mentioned a few: complex problem solving, creativity, critical thinking, emotional intelligence, communication, teamwork, leadership, client relationship, and business development.
Yeah.
But if we look at law firms and how they hire, those things most of the time are not a very big part of the hiring process. It's still, what are your grades in university? What are your grades before university? I'm like, there also needs to change something, because if you are changing the whole curriculum and you are changing the way you teach students and you teach them more principles, you teach them more systems, the way law firms hire at a certain point also needs to change.
No, I agree, and I do think there is also a contradiction here, because law firms do look for that kind of profiles. They want lawyers who can lead a team. They want lawyers who can work with that can work in a diverse team. They want lawyers that have communication skills and lawyers who can build trust with their clients. But most recruitment processes are designed for junior lawyers, where you cannot really, or it is extremely hard to test for these skills. They hope that the lawyers they are hiring will eventually develop these skills, but it's difficult to test for them when you are hiring a year one associate. Sometimes I think that law firms know which universities, which law schools the candidates come from, and they know what they have learned in these academic institutions. I think these kind of skills are tested rather when they hire more senior lawyers. But I agree, I don't think they are testing for these skills when they are hiring a junior lawyer.
And one of the ways you are teaching your students these skills is VR. And VR is a tool. It's one of the tools in your toolbox. But it's interesting because you use VR as a way to teach negotiations, to teach communication, to teach cultural differences.
Yeah.
How and in which way you use VR for that?
We have several cases that we use. These cases have been created by our faculty together with a team of experiential learning that helps them convert these cases into a VR experience, and this allows the students to get highly involved and very fast involved in the situation, in the context where you are in an international conflict and you need to make a choice and you have three different options, and when you have a VR case adapted to this, it takes only a few minutes for the student to understand what the situation is, to choose one option or another, and then to see what the result of the options are. It is a fantastic tool. It is very engaging for students, which is something we also need to pay attention to, and it can give life to a very complex situation that would otherwise maybe take a very long time and would be more difficult to explain to the students. So yes, we have used a few of them, in particular with our undergraduate students, and they have been super successful.
Yeah, it's a very interactive way of teaching also. So what you just mentioned, the engagement, I know from my own study that if you had a college of 2 hours and someone was talking for 2 hours, I think after 10 or 15 minutes, laptops went open and people went on social media to do other stuff. And if you use this VR method, I have the feeling that you engage people in a much better way.
Yeah. No, I think fortunately legal education and higher education in general, but in particular legal education, has evolved over the years, and most faculty have understood that students come to class either to hold a debate on what they have been reading and working at home before, or to ask the questions on the work that has previously been done at home. But students do not come to class anymore to take notes of a lecture.
So let's go back to the architects of society. We have a world in a few years where people increasingly rely on systems, rely on tools, not even lawyers, but also the more general public. So what should the public be able to expect from law schools if we go, 5 years in the future? What should they expect from the teaching, from the systems, from the way those students are being educated?
I think law schools should be institutions for teaching, research, and engagement with society. All of the three, I think, are very important. Law schools need to train not only lawyers, but legal professionals, jurists, and citizens that understand how the world is organized, that understand what the values of democracy are, that understand the principles of the rule of law, and that can exercise any profession from a legal perspective, any profession, using the tools of the law in order to improve society. I think law schools also need to do research that will help society solve the real problems that society faces, practical problems that society is looking for an answer to. And I think law schools should be should be an institution where academics engaged with private practice and also with public administration. A place for debate, for conversation, for advancement of society through the law.
Do law schools also have the responsibility to teach in plain language? Because if we look at law, a lot of lawyers, they're using very difficult language. It's also a way to protect, the bubble they built.
Yes. I agree. I think this has changed, and more lawyers use what is called a plain language, because this is what the clients require, and this is also what the judges currently require. So I think there is this lawyers have seen this need to being more transparent and to communicating both with the judge and with their clients in a way that they can understand better. And precisely in a time where technology and AI are tools that everyone can use, if a lawyer does not provide a response or a solution to a client that they are able to direct and fully understand, the other option for the client would be to use AI in a way where the client can choose, because you can ask the tool, how do you want your response, in which format, in which style to be?
Yeah, so you need to teach this also as a law school.
Yes.
And if you could give the deans from other universities one advice or a few advices for, say, the next 12 months, 24 months, what would your advice be for deans of universities, especially looking at AI and how this is changing everything?
I have to say I wouldn't dare give any of my colleagues a tip or a suggestion, but I think many of us share this at the same time the concern for the challenge, but we also share the interest for this opportunity that we see ahead of us, being part of the transformation in society through law. And this makes us ask some difficult questions. What exactly do we need to teach? And how exactly do we need to teach? I think are the most simple, plain, but also complex questions that we ask ourselves, but also how to benefit from this opportunity when I think the world is looking for answers, when I think this geopolitical situation of uncertainty and constant conflict looks for solid responses, and this is what legal professionals and what law schools can give nowadays.
So let's finish with some advice then for students, law students, and also future law students. If you look ahead 10 years, what are the habits you want law students to build?
I would summarize in one sentence, and this is trying to acquire a global legal mindset, trying to acquire a mindset that will help them today and tomorrow, a mindset that is built on knowledge beyond one legal system, on knowledge beyond one discipline, so going beyond the legal discipline, and skills and competencies that are based not only knowledge and experience, but also human skills that will accompany them when they use the technology and the AI in their professions.
Which human skills?
Learning and experiencing how to work with other people, working in diverse teams, mediating, negotiating, delegating, listening, being empathetic. These are the skills that I think graduates should be skilled on in order to use technology and AI, but at the same time being able to build trust with their clients and their colleagues.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hide. It has been a pleasure.
Me too. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Legal AI Lab. Many thanks to my guest, Dr. Soledad Atienza Becerril. Follow and subscribe in your podcast app, leave a review, and share this episode. More conversations are coming with global leaders in AI, law, justice, and policy. See you next time. This episode is powered by Zeno. Zeno's AI navigates law like a human legal professional, grounded in authoritative sources, backed by traceable citations. Visit zeno.law and make deep thinking your competitive edge.